can you discuss the impact of user-centric testing on overall product quality and customer satisfaction, and share any success stories that you might have seen?
Yeah, sure thing. So, basically, I would like to mention that most of the time we feel like actual behavior is
Mm-hmm.
same as perceived behavior, right? And it's a common trap. So when we are interacting with a feature or a product, we feel like the user will also be interacting in the same way, and it's not the case. And one of the example I used to mention in my talks was basically, say we as a user is booking a cab in Uber, right? When we are about to go somewhere. But when it comes to testing the functionality, your functionality is booking a cab in Uber. You just make sure that you are able to book the cab. That's the functionality. But when it comes to a real user scenario, what happens is me, if I'm booking the cab, I will check in Uber. I open the app, I check in Uber, and if it's showing crazy amount, I will go for another platform. I check on the other platform. And that also, if it is giving me a higher option, I will take the best. I won't go with Uber. Right? So there is multiple scenarios happening in the real life use case of an user, but we don't cover that. So if you are considering the real scenario happened with the user, there is a context that the user opens Uber app trying to make a search, and then he is switching the context from your app view and he is opening another app on top of your app. So there is an like a switch of context of different application, and your app is running in the background. So how the functionality behaves during that point of time, it is not included in the functionality, but it has to be a user experience kind of aspect that you need to take into consideration. So having these kind of like situations, making sure that the actual scenario and the perceived one becomes more aligned really brings up more value. So you need to know how your user really interacts with the application and what could be the potential interruptions that could happen when they are making a specific transaction, right? From our side, actually, set of like customer interviews really helped us to understand these kind of patterns. So for me also, initially when it comes to functionality, it was purely functionality. But what my user expect, I started to get that insight from attending customer interviews, because I started to see how they interact and what they expect out of certain things. So we had a filter. So when we test the functionality, we focus only on filter functionality. Is it filterable, right? So are you getting right filter output? But as a user, I am expecting, based on my filter criteria, am I getting narrow down result based on what I am expecting? So that is user experience. So it's a different layer compared to functionality, and based on the experience I had from customer interviews, actually we were able to advocate more on these kind of approaches, like the same one I mentioned to you earlier, having a checkbox to reuse the content, having a fast pay type of item that ensures that the user is more able to make a transaction faster. And during COVID time, we had a situation where like completely it was shut down, and ours was a fintech application that you need to go to a physical store to make a transaction. But during COVID time, no one was going out and it was able to make a transaction physically. So we had to think of different approaches to make the product sustainable, right? And we really had an option that we could start delivering things to their people's home using our platform itself. But we only came to know that after listening to our customers' pain point, because they were wondering what could be the next feature I could have, because I still need to use the platform, but I don't have a feature, right? So when we started to collect those kind of details, we saw the potentiality to implement a feature that, okay, it could be even a simple Google form, because we created a Google form they could fill up, but we bring you the thing which you onlinely, or like which you order online. So that was a small feature which we did based on the customer feedback and also customer interviews which we did, and it actually bring a lot of revenue and options during the COVID time when every business was shutting down. So it could be smaller changes and optimization. Even a smaller checkbox can make a huge difference when it comes to making pleasure in your users.
Great. I mean, those are some very interesting stories to hear. Nitin, thank you so much for sharing that. What it makes me understand is that, the tangible impact that user-centric testing is bringing to both product quality and also to help increase the customer satisfaction, especially when
Yeah,
you're directly getting those inputs from the customers and the users, right? That must be
exactly.
that must be super valuable at the end of the day. And yeah, incorporating user feedback truly seems to be like a game changer method when it comes to that. Yeah.
And I guess we share a lot of commonalities when it comes to like marketing and testing. We share a lot of commonalities, but if we consider the user point of view and empathy, like you said earlier,
Mhm.
but it is not taught when it comes to only functionality. People see testing is more towards only functionality aspect, but it's not.
Right. No, interesting to hear that as well. I mean, when you mentioned about potential, looking at even potential interruptions during a transaction, right? So tester has to be fully aware of different scenarios, not just about the um, as you said, functionality of it, but
Yeah.
looking at what are the obstacles, what are the interruptions that sort of come in when a transaction is happening for that matter. Yeah, very interesting again.